The city felt heavy that night. The streets hummed with a faint echo of tires on wet asphalt, the low buzz of neon signs bleeding against the misty air, and the occasional murmur of strangers rushing home. It was Tuesday, 8 p.m., when the knock came at my apartment door. I wasn't expecting company. My fiancée, Chloe, was across town at her book club, and I'd been sitting on the couch with a glass of bourbon in hand, spreadsheets open on my laptop. The soft hum of my ceiling fan was the only sound in the room, but the knock, sharp, insistent, shattered that stillness. When I opened the door, Diane stood there, Chloe's mother, a woman whose presence always carried the sharpness of cold steel beneath the veneer of suburban pearls and perfume. Her makeup was flawless, her hair perfectly curled, but her eyes burned with something feral. She didn't wait for an invitation. She shoved past me, her designer heels clicking against my hardwood floor like a gavel striking down judgment. "We need to talk about this wedding," she said, her voice low but brimming with authority. The smell of her perfume, too sweet, almost suffocating, clung to the air as she positioned herself in the center of my living room like she owned it. "Good evening to you too, Diane," I replied, half amused, half annoyed. "Would you like to sit down before delivering your monologue?" Her lips curled into a thin smile. "No need. I'll keep this simple. You're not marrying my daughter." The words landed like glass shattering in a silent room. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. "Excuse me." "You heard me," she snapped. "Chloe deserves better than this. Some office drone pulling in 60 grand a year. Do you think that's a life for her? Do you think that's enough?" My stomach tightened, but I kept my face unreadable. "And who exactly do you think she deserves?" "Jerome." I almost spit out the bourbon I was holding. "Her ex? The guy who cheated on her with 3 different women." "He's changed," she said flatly. "More importantly, he just made partner. For $100,000 a year, that's stability, that's security, that's a future. You're a stepping stone she needs to move past." I sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, the fabric cool beneath my palms. Her words weren't surprising. Diane never liked me. But hearing her scheme spoken so openly, so brazenly, was surreal. She didn't even hide her disdain. "And Chloe knows about this little plan of yours?" I asked. "She will," Diane said, her tone laced with arrogance. "She always does what I say eventually. So here's what's going to happen. You'll call off the wedding. Tell her you got cold feet. Make it believable. In return, I won't tell the world about that DUI you had." I froze. "What DUI?" Her smirk widened. "The one I'll make sure shows up in every background check if you don't cooperate." For a long moment, silence filled the room. The ticking of the wall clock seemed louder, the city's muffled hum beyond the glass more distant. Inside, I felt something shift, not fear, but clarity. This woman wasn't just meddling. She was willing to manufacture destruction to get her way. And that's when I smiled. Calm, deliberate, considerate, done. Diane blinked. For the first time that evening, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. She had expected anger, maybe resistance, not compliance. "Really? That was easier than I thought. The wedding's off." I said evenly, "You win." She tilted her chin, but I could see the faintest trace of disappointment, as if she thrived more on the fight than the victory. Without another word, she turned on her heel, her heels clicking like a metronome of finality, and left. The door clicked shut. I sat back against the couch, bourbon in hand, and let the silence return. But inside, a storm was building. Diane thought she had cornered me. She thought I was powerless. She didn't know I had every contract in my name. And in that moment, the plan began to write itself. Tomorrow my world, and hers, would change forever. The night after Diane stormed out, I didn't sleep much. The hum of the city outside my window felt louder than usual, the glow of passing headlights sliding across the ceiling like restless ghosts. My mind kept replaying her smirk, her arrogance, the way she believed money could rewrite morality. By dawn, clarity hardened into action. I made coffee, strong and bitter, the steam curling in the kitchen air while my laptop hummed awake. Every contract, The venue, the catering, the photographer, the flowers, even the honeymoon flights. All of them bore my name. Chloe had pushed for it, her voice echoing in my memory. "You're better with details, babe. Just put on your card. I'll pay you back after the wedding gift roll-in." She never realized she'd handed me control of the entire event. By noon, I had called every vendor. My voice was calm, professional, as if I were closing deals instead of detonating them. The venue manager, a man with a gravelly laugh, said, 3 weeks out? Happens more than you'd think, man. You're lucky. We can refund 60%. Click. Another contract canceled. Another deposit headed back to my account. The catering company was polite, sympathetic even. The photographer sounded almost relieved, like she had just freed up her schedule for something less stressful. Each conversation was another brick pulled from the structure Diane thought she controlled. By late afternoon, I was staring at a spreadsheet of refunds in progress. $16,000 in deposits, nearly $11,000 recoverable after fees. Not a bad trade for peace of mind and freedom. Then I made one last call. The airline. The honeymoon tickets had been booked to Greece. A symbol of the life Chloe and I were supposed to start together. With a few clicks and a polite request, I changed the destination. Bali. 1 seat, not 2. Always wanted to go. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in bruised shades of purple and orange, my bags were half-packed. The apartment felt quieter, emptier, but not in a sorrowful way. More like a stage after the curtain has dropped. The phone rang. Chloe. Her name lit up the screen like a flare. I answered. Her voice was shaky, on the verge of tears. "My mom said you two talked." "Babe," whatever she said, ignore her. She's crazy sometimes. I let the silence stretch, heavy and deliberate. Actually, she made some good points. The line went quiet. Then, "What? Are you serious right now?" "Dead serious. The wedding's off." Her sob broke through the speaker. "You're joking. This is a joke." Had 150 people coming. I corrected gently. "Not anymore. I canceled everything this morning." The silence was deafening. I could almost hear her heart cracking through the line. Then anger. "You already canceled everything? Without talking to me? Your mom made it clear this was non-negotiable. I'm just following orders. I'm coming over. Don't move." 20 minutes later, the knock came. I opened the door to see Chloe. Her eyes red, her hair disheveled from running. Behind her stood Diane, perfectly composed, smirking like a queen who had conquered her enemy, until she saw the suitcase by the door. "Going somewhere?" Chloe asked, her voice trembling. "Bali," I said. "Flight's tomorrow. Thought I'd use the honeymoon tickets." "Those were our tickets." "Were. Now they're just mine. Don't worry, I'll send postcards." Diane stepped forward, her tone sharp. "This is ridiculous. You can't just..." "Can't just what?" I cut her off. "Follow your direct orders? You said call it off or you'd make my life hell. I called it off. We're good, right?" Chloe turned on her mother then, desperation in her eyes. "What did you do?" "I was protecting you," Diane said, her voice firm. "He's not good enough. That's my decision." Chloe's voice cracked, raw with emotion. "It's always been my decision." "Well, now it's made," I said quietly. I picked up my phone and showed them the text. Chloe's own words about me fronting the costs. "Remember, Chloe, just put on your card, babe. I'll pay you back after the wedding gifts. Every contract, every deposit is mine. You owe me a dime." Diane's face turned crimson, rage boiling beneath her polished exterior. "You little..." "Careful," I interrupted. "My brother's a lawyer. If any mysterious DUIs or rumors show up about me, we'll sue for defamation. He's already drafting paperwork." For the first time, Diane faltered. The smirk vanished. She turned to leave, muttering under her breath, her heels clattering like retreating gunfire. Chloe stayed. She tried everything: tears, anger, bargaining. Her hands trembled as she grabbed mine. "Please, don't do this. Don't let her win." But the truth was already written in her choice. The second she showed up with Diane at her side, instead of standing against her, the scales tipped. I let go of her hand. I already did. That night, while Chloe cried in my doorway and Diane seated in the hallway, my suitcase sat ready. Tomorrow, the world would open up. Tomorrow, I would choose freedom. And tomorrow, the chaos would begin to unravel without me. The air in Bali felt different. Heavy with salt, warm with promise. When I stepped off the plane, the humid breeze carried the scent of frangipani flowers and clove cigarettes. The chatter of vendors, the rhythmic hum of scooters weaving through narrow streets, and the laughter of tourists mingled into a symphony that felt alive. By evening, I was barefoot at a beach bar in Seminyak, staring out at the Indian Ocean. The sunset stretched wide across the horizon, bleeding from gold to crimson, as waves rolled in with the steady rhythm of a heartbeat. My drink was cool in my hand, the glass sweating as condensation trickled down. For the first time in weeks, I exhaled without tension in my chest. But peace has a way of being interrupted. By the second day, my phone was a graveyard of missed calls. 67 from Chloe, 31 from Diane. Their desperation piled up like unanswered voicemails, my conscience. I didn't delete them. I documented everything. Screenshots, logs, evidence. My brother, ever the lawyer, insisted on it. Then I blocked both numbers. That night, I got a message from my cousin Jenna, who still lived in our hometown. She had been at a coffee shop that morning when she overheard Diane and her friends. Her text lit up my screen. "You won't believe this. Diane told everyone you got cold feet and dumped Chloe. But then Chloe showed up. I leaned back against a bamboo chair, the waves crashing in the distance, and read the play-by-play Jenna had typed furiously. The cafe had been busy, sunlight streaming through tall windows, the aroma of roasted beans filling the air. Diane sat at the center of her circle of friends, pearls around her neck, a latte cooling at her elbow. Can you believe he canceled everything? 3 weeks before the wedding. Just cold feet, gasps around the table. One woman whispered, "But wasn't he obsessed with her? He planned everything himself." Diane waved her hand dismissively, savoring the role of tragic mother. Then Chloe walked in, puffy eyes, tense shoulders. She froze when she saw her mother holding court. "Mom, we need to talk. Now." "Sweetie, not here." "No, now." Her voice cracked. The cafe fell silent. "What did you do?" Chloe's voice trembled, sharp and raw. "I was protecting you." "You threatened him." Chloe's hands balled into fists at her sides. "You told him to call it off, or you'd ruin his life." The entire cafe went still. You could have heard the clink of a spoon against porcelain. "Diane, you didn't—" One of her friends whispered. "I did what needed to be done." Diane snapped. "You cost me $10,000 in deposits." Chloe's voice broke into a sob. "You cost me everything. It's not my fault. It's literally your fault." Chloe's words hung in the air, heavy as thunder. Diane, red-faced and cornered, stormed out. Chloe collapsed into a chair, sobbing, while her mother's friends exchanged stunned looks. One leaned closer to Chloe and whispered, "Your mom's always been controlling, but this is next level." I laughed out loud when I finished reading Jenna's message. The bartender, a wiry man with sun-worn skin, looked over. "Good news?" he asked in broken English. "The best," I said, raising my glass. Back home, Diane's empire control was crumbling, and here I was, learning to surf. The next morning, I paddled out into the turquoise water. The surf instructor, a wiry local name maid, shouted encouragement. I stumbled the first few tries, salt water filling my mouth, but by the 5th wave, I was standing. The board cut through the swell, spray against my face, adrenaline surging through my veins. On shore, the sun glistened on the water, and for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about obligations, rings, or in-laws. I was thinking about balance, literal and metaphorical. But Bali wasn't just beaches and waves. It was freedom. It was the opposite of Diane's suffocating control. Every sunrise hike up Mount Batter. Every cooking class filled with the aroma of ginger and chili, every night market buzzing with music and laughter. All of it felt like a rebirth. And yet, thousands of miles away, chaos was blooming like wildfire. The venue called me one night at 3 a.m. Bali time. Their number glowed across the screen. Groggy, I answered. Mr. Thompson here, from the venue. Just confirming you want to reverse your cancellation. What? No, absolutely not. Well, someone claiming to be you just called sounded like a 55-year-old woman. I groaned. That would be my ex-fiance's mother. Please note in your records, do not accept any changes unless they come directly from my email. He chuckled. Already done. Oh, and just so you know, we've already rebooked your date. Corporate event. Even if you wanted it back, it's gone. Perfect. Diane had tried to rewrite the narrative again. And again, she'd failed. Later, my mom called me. Diane had shown up at my parents' house, spinning her stories of breakdowns and theft. My father nearly threw her off the property. My mother, bless her, sent me photos of her garden right after a caption. She says you stole Chloe's money. I showed her the texts. She called them fake. We told her to leave before we called the cops. I smiled, scrolling through photos of roses while sitting under palm trees. Diane's grip was slipping faster than sand through her fingers. But Chloe was different. She texted me a long apology, paragraphs spilling over with regret. She hadn't known about her mother's threats. She claimed. She loved me. She wanted to fix things. And then came the knife. I think you overreacted. You should have talked to me first. We can still fix this. Overreacted. Extortion was just something to talk about. I sipped my mojito, the bartender teaching me Indonesian curse words between laughs, and replied with the simplest truth. Your mom wins. You're single. Jerome sounds perfect for you both. Enjoy. Because while Chloe was still tethered to her mother's strings, I was standing on the edge of a Balinese sunset, free. And freedom tasted better than any wedding cake ever could. By the second week in Bali, I thought the storm back home might finally be dying out. The ocean had its own rhythm, and I was starting to live by it. Mornings spent surfing, afternoons wandering through markets heavy with the scent of spices, evenings watching the horizon bleed into twilight. But Diane was not the type to let go. One humid night, as I lay stretched on a bamboo lounge chair, a notification buzzed across my phone. My brother, the lawyer, had texted, "You've been served. Don't panic. I've got this." Diane had actually filed a lawsuit against me. Emotional damages. Theft of wedding funds. She'd carried her crusade into a courthouse, trying to paint herself as a victim. For a moment, I just laughed under the palm trees. Diane had escalated from veiled threats to courtroom drama. My brother handled everything. He sent me updates that read like comedy scripts. Judge says no grounds for emotional damage when defendant has documented proof plaintiff threatened him. Another line. No theft when every contract is in defendant's name and plaintiff's own daughter agreed to pay him back after the gifts. Case dismissed. Plaintiff owes you $1,500 in legal fees. I screenshotted that line and ordered another drink. Diane had tried to ruin me, and instead, she paid for my brother's next vacation. But that wasn't the only development. Back home, Chloe was unraveling. She texted me at odd hours, her words frantic and disjointed. She swore she had no part in her mother's schemes, swore she loved me, but every word was tangled in excuses. She insisted I had overreacted, that we could fix this if I just came home. Her messages grew more desperate when Jerome entered the picture. Jerome, the man Diane had always championed. The ex who had once broken Chloe's heart in spectacular fashion, now slithered back into her life like a vulture circling fresh roadkill. He offered to pay for a new wedding, to replace what I had stolen. Chloe swore she turned him down, but then my buddy Kevin saw them having dinner together. Another friend spotted them at brunch, and then my barber texted me. Dude, saw Chloe and Jerome at the shop. She was wearing the engagement ring you gave her. It felt surreal, like watching a play unfold in a theater you'd already walked out of. So I did something petty. I posted a string of Bali photos, Me standing tall on a surfboard. Me cooking satay in a class while the instructor laughed. Me hiking a mountain at dawn with the sky exploding in color. I captioned it simply, "Sometimes the best thing that can happen is dodging a bullet. Thanks, Diane." Chloe called immediately. "How dare you?" "How dare I what?" I asked. "Enjoy my life?" "You're rubbing it in. You're making me look like a fool." "You seem to be doing fine with Jerome." I said, "We're just friends." "Friends don't usually wear engagement rings together." She stammered, her excuses hollow. Finally, she snapped, "At least he fights for me. At least he's willing to prove himself." I went cold. "No, Chloe. He's waiting until you're weak and swooping in like he always does. I fought for you for 4 years. I just refuse to fight your mother too. There's a difference." The line went silent. Then she hung up. Later that night, my phone rang again, Chloe's number. But when I answered, it wasn't her voice. "You ruined everything." Diane spat. Her fury hissed through the receiver like venom. I leaned back, smirking at the moonlit ocean. "Did you get the court papers yet?" "You little SH. Careful." I cut her off. "Harassment is a crime. My brother's recording this call." "You're lying." "Hi, Mrs. Diane." My brother's voice chimed in smoothly. "Please stop contacting my client." Click. The silence afterward felt sweeter than the tropical breeze. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist a knife in Diane's plans, my work emailed me. Apparently, handling the Peterson merger remotely from Bali, while simultaneously juggling extortion threats, lawsuits, and a canceled wedding, had impressed the higher-ups. Effective immediately, the email read, "We're adjusting your compensation to $75,000 annually. Let's discuss your promotion track when you return." I stared at the message, grinning. Diane had mocked my salary, claimed I wasn't good enough, pushed her daughter back into the arms of a man who cheated on her, and in the end, she got me a raise. Her attempts to destroy me had only sharpened me. But as sweet as victory tasted, I knew one thing. Diane wasn't finished. Not yet. People like her never stop. And when she finally hit her breaking point, the fallout would be public, messy, unavoidable. I just didn't know how spectacularly it would implode until I came home. The flight home felt different. Not heavy, not nervous, just inevitable. I'd spent weeks in paradise, sipping cocktails under sunsets while Diane fought in courtrooms and Chloe clung to a ghost of what we once were. But sooner or later, you have to face the wreckage. I landed late afternoon. The air was colder, sharper than Bali's humid warmth. My brother picked me up, smirking as he tossed my bag into his trunk. "You ready for the circus?" he asked. "Born ready," I said, though in truth, I wasn't. The circus found me before I found it. A week later, I stopped by the grocery store. Just a normal errand: eggs, bread, coffee. The place smelled faintly of bleach and baked bread, a weird mix of sterility and comfort. I was walking down the aisle when I heard it. "You!" The voice cut through the store like a knife. People turned, carts squeaking as heads swiveled. Diane. She stood at the end of the aisle, her makeup smeared, her hair unkempt for the first time I'd ever seen. She looked less like the pristine queen of high society, and more like a woman unraveling. Chloe trailed behind her, pale, exhausted, eyes puffy from tears. "You ruined her life." Diane shrieked, storming toward me. "You stole her future. You!" Her tirade spilled into every corner of the store. Shoppers froze. Cashiers stared. Phones quietly lifted to record. "Diane," I said calmly, "you're making a scene. You think you're clever? You think you're better than us? My daughter deserves a real man, not—" Chloe suddenly collapsed onto her knees. The sound of her sobbing cut through Diane's voice like a blade. "Mom, please," Chloe begged, clutching at her mother's arm. "Please stop. I can't do this anymore." The world seemed to freeze. Diane yanked her arm back, glaring down at her own daughter with something that wasn't maternal. It was rage, embarrassment, and in that moment, everyone saw it. The entire store. Strangers who had no stake in our lives watched as the mask slipped from Diane's face. A cashier muttered, "Jesus Christ." Another shopper whispered, "Poor girl." Phones recorded every second. Chloe looked up at me then. Her voice cracked, raw. "I'm so sorry. For everything. I should have stood up to her. I should have believed you. I couldn't." Her words hit like a final stone dropping into water, ripples spreading out, but nothing left to change. I crouched slightly, meeting her eyes. "I know, but you let her win. And now, I can't take that chance again." Tears streamed down her cheeks. Diane shrieked something else, threats, curses, but no one was listening anymore. All eyes were on Chloe, broken on the grocery store floor, and on me, finally free. I placed my basket on the ground, straightened up, and walked away, past the stunned faces, past the buzzing phones, past the chaos. The sliding glass doors opened, and the cold air hit me like a baptism. For the first time in months, I felt weightless. Outside, my phone buzzed. A notification. One of those Bali photos had just hit 5,000 likes. Strangers cheering me on. A tide of support I never asked for, but suddenly understood. People recognized freedom when they saw it. I slid into my car, started the engine, and let the noise of the store fade behind me. Sometimes closure isn't neat. Sometimes it's messy, public, humiliating. But for me, closure wasn't Chloe's apology or Diane's downfall. It was the sound of those doors sliding shut behind me, and the knowledge that I'd walked out alive, untouchable, and free.